Entrepreneurship is the only way. You must become your own boss. I make these videos for my old self. I know what kind of a life you want. Listen, I know what kind of a life you want. You want to be wildly successful. You want to be filthy rich. You want to amass generational wealth. You want to work from anywhere in the world. You want to fly on private planes. You want your own jet. You want the Bentley. You want the Rolls Royce. I know exactly what kind of a life you want. You don't want to live a life where someone can tell you how many days of vacation you can take this year or how many sick days you get before we stop paying you. You don't want a life where you have to wake up, you have no choice, at 6:30 in the morning and get on the highway and drive half an hour to work in a suit and tie, to sit in a cubicle and not talk to anyone. You don't want a life where you have to watch the way you speak because of corporate culture and all this weird nonsense. You don't want that life. I know this. I know this because I was you and I lived that. Speaking to my old self, I know what kind of life you want, and you know deep down that the only way to get that kind of life, the only way not to get it, but to build that kind of life, is to be your own boss. To not live a life where there's a single soul where you have to call boss. I know that. And I know you might not have the know-how as to how to make your first dollar, or you might not have the attitude, or you might be too big-headed or too much of an ego, but I'm putting this video out to remind you that that is the only way, and you should continue to try and fail and invest in yourself and go broke and do the walk of shame back to a 9-to-5 and then quit and try again as many times as it takes until you figure it out for yourself, until you crack the code, until you are in full alignment with the attitude you need, from the attitude you need to the knowledge you need to the kind of drive you need in order to make this happen. It is worth it. You should always be willing to step into the unknown, to step into the darkness and do it. It's been a year and a half since the last time I ever called someone boss. It's been a year and a half since the last time there was ever a soul on this planet who could tell me that I no longer have a job or that I'm fired or whatever it is. And here's the thing. If my business ever fails, if something ever happens to me, God forbid, if I ever feel like I'm at the point where I don't have enough knowledge and I can't get this from a book or a mentor or whatever it is, and I have to go work a job or emergency where I needed money tomorrow and I didn't have a product I could sell or whatever it is, I just hit a brain freeze, I'd be more than willing to go and ask for a job and get a job. I'm not against 9-to-5s. I'm not against working a job, especially if you have no skills. Go get skills. If you guys know my story, I've talked about this many times. I bounce around from job to job to job, from finance to recruitment to which is sales to IT to wellness and entrepreneurship and content creation. I have nothing against the 9-to-5. I just do not believe in making that your last stop. Unless that is what you've always dreamt to do. You've always wanted to be an investment banker, for example. You've always wanted to be a CEO of some company that isn't your own. Cool. Do that. That path is still rewarding and fulfilling if that is who you are. I do not subscribe to the idea of making your job your identity. And I know how traumatizing and stressful that can be because that was me. And you're giving your power away. You're giving your creativity away. We are naturally incredibly creative. And if you devote the rest of your life to working a corporate job, to working for someone else, I promise you, you will never, unless you win the lottery, I can say this confidently, and I never say never, but you will never build that life that you so truly want. The massive amounts of wealth and so on and so forth. Now, it might just not be your time. It just might not be your time to quit. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could be in your 50s or 60s. It might not be your time. God has a different plan for everybody else. There's a different sequence of events for everybody on the path to building generational wealth and achieving financial freedom. There's a different sequence of events for everybody, but that should always be on your mind. Building your desired reality. If what I want is akin to what you want, that level, because I make videos for people who are going for that level and who have that kind of ambition. If that is what you desire and what you are building, never let that go. You should never, ever, ever let that go. Life a year and a half after being my own boss is amazing. My income skyrockets, my income crashes and dips. It's getting more and more stable, but you become more and more tolerant and thick-skinned towards that risk. It doesn't bother you and instill fear in you the way it does at the start, especially if you've never done it before. I've said this in other videos, but I've gone broke and I've seen a lot of money so many times that I don't fear those ups and downs. And every entrepreneur who has been through it can relate to this. It never ends. You're always playing on some level where the highs are higher and the lows are lower. It never ends. But who you become in the process is so worth it. And I look back on my corporate self and I can safely say that number one, I wouldn't have been able to survive this route of entrepreneurship had I not amassed those skills in that corporate job. Number two, I couldn't have survived entrepreneurship this long had I not developed the frustration and fear of going back to a 9-to-5. The reason why entrepreneurs succeed, one of the main reasons, is because they have a deep-seated almost fear and resentment towards going back to a 9-to-5. So in exchange, they're willing to figure it out by any means possible, and that needs to be your attitude. And if you haven't achieved that level of fear and resentment yet of working for someone else, it's not your time yet. Because you might lack the know-how, you might lack the skills, you might lack whatever it is, but if you have the will to figure it out, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. There are things that I didn't know when I first started, but I just kept swinging and I figured it out at that stage of my life. And there are things I still don't know that I'm still figuring out. But to wrap this up, if you want a life worth living, if you want the grander things in life, if you want to start seeing the $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 months on your own, be able to travel and work anywhere else in the world, you have to be your own boss. Straight up. And I know that term is played out now, but it will never not be true. Start your own business. I'd rather make $50,000 or $25,000 working for myself than $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 working for someone else. I'm just at that point now, mentally and energetically. And until you do it, you won't realize why it's worth it. And those who are doing it on their own can attest to this. I'll end the video here. Let me know your thoughts and questions in the comments. See you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.